always my response. I'm not, I mean, the slides are not going to be a big deal. Everybody knows you're getting ice cream. So, yeah, it's fine. Maybe we can move it down after we go through the two slides. Then it's just going to be discussion. All right, everybody, it's 10:30 on the nose. I said we'd start on time so we can end on time and go back to decorating our houses for whatever Super Bowl party you're having or going to. Yeah, either one. Thank you for coming and for attending online, for those of you that are online. We don't have a big slide presentation. We really have a couple of things just to give you, just to have a discussion about. We're going to start off with Rabbi talking about High Holy Days, the survey we did, what the future might look like, etc. So, Rabbi, it's up to you.
Thank you, Steve. Boker Tov, everyone. How y'all doing? Good? That was not convincing. You're all right. It's still early. Well, I hope when you came in, though, you happen to notice our facility as it's transforming. Amazing, amazing. And it's nice. We're going to have access to the courtyard sooner than later, I think. But even the facade in the front, you can see what's happening, what's being transformed there. It's just so exciting. So I think it's only fitting that we think about the inside of the synagogue as well, and that's all of us, as we transform the facade and the outside. I want to overall just thank those that really contributed their opinions, their thoughts in the High Holiday survey. We got so much information. And what I wanted to do was respond to it in two major ways. One is just to go over some stuff that we're thinking about changing based on that survey, but also to go over why we're at the Heritage Theater and why we're not here. And that was something that a few people brought up, so I really wanted to address that. And I don't think we've literally talked about why we do that in a very long time. We almost have made the assumption that everyone just knows that we do that. But it's nice periodically to bring up why we do it. And it's something that I know a lot of you are aware of. That's something the synagogue did well before my time, meeting at the Center for the Performing Arts and the High Holidays. So let me go through initially stuff about the High Holidays at the Heritage, and if you have any questions, thoughts as I go through this, just raise your hand and we could stop in the middle of it. This could be somewhat of a dialogue, nothing wrong with that. So let me just start with some obvious ones. First of all, the parking. We would need to hire a valet service and arrange for 4 additional parking exemptions if we were here at Temple Emanu-El. We get 6 exemptions a year, and that actually would impact us. We keep those for like an emergency funeral, like a big ticket funeral or something large happening in our community, and those do come up. And then the idea of taking a transport to your car after waiting in line after a service. We also would need to arrange for off-site parking somewhere and a bus people to and fro. This would mean that people attending would have to come very early and stay late. We know how much people love doing that. You come early to get your seat. That's the most important thing, of course, for those that do that. We have over double the seating capacity at the Heritage, and what's nice about that is that we can invite non-members, students of mine becoming Jews by choice, and this year I have quite a few, so every year we have those. I also, and we had a couple this year, that's growing, but we have clergy from other faiths and officials in the community that are able to join us because we have the room. We can invite prospective members and those that actually can't afford tickets as well. The other piece is we could be together as a congregational family as opposed to asking people to be in this space and not in the sanctuary. I don't even want to go down that road of having to choose who does that. The ritual committee, leadership, and many members of the community have continuously seen the value of us all being together as a very important statement of who we are as a congregation. We also have a history, like I said, of being off-site as a congregation. For many years, the congregation had high holidays at the Center for the Performing Arts. When I came here, we had double services. And what I did was I bounced back and forth to do the sermon. We had an alternative. We had to hire a rabbi and a cantor here, and it was really, quite frankly, horrible for me because there was no sense of connectedness, no unity. And that, to me, is the key of a synagogue, that we have a sense of oneness. So I really appreciate it. Then we went to, if you recall, those of you that were with us, we went to the cavernous, what was it called? Yeah, Civic Auditorium. Yeah, it was horrible, cold and large, and we filled up a tenth of it, I think. Yeah, that was bizarre. The other thing is, by being at Heritage, we can sell tickets to non-members, and I have to be honest with you that because we have that space, it is a revenue stream that's quite helpful for us. But it also has the potential of getting new members. People come, hey, why don't you check us out? Here's a couple tickets. We are able to do that every year. Stephanie does that, I do that. The president, whoever's president gets to do that. Whoever, say, here you go, why don't you come and join us? That is completely wonderful. If we had a limit here, we could never do that. I also said when I first came here, I don't want to be at a congregation that wants to shrink. I prefer to be at a congregation that wants to grow, personally, as a rabbi. Even at my advanced age now, I still feel the same way. Group, and to just get people together, and then we would have to have 2 training sessions for both. This was such a Megillah. I can't begin to tell you how much work this was on our staff. And we actually don't have the same staffing as we used to. We're actually short-staffed. So we really don't even have the professional staff to do it here, to be truthful. We also don't want to burn out our membership. That's been a concern without having a custodian here, that there are some of us that after a service we have to be the custodian. That's not what we want for a membership. It's just not. We want to come here and have a spiritual experience. And as spiritual as putting away chairs can be, for most of us, it's not our preference when it comes to spirituality when we come here. The Heritage is also a central location. It's easy to get to, and usually lots of parking, super accessible. It's a better location, actually, for security purposes. There's less entrances, and we have more eyes at the entrances than we do here at Temple Emanu-El, where there's a lot of places that personally people can get into and have. There's no cost savings at Temple, quite frankly. It's basically a wash. And in some ways, if we brought it back here, there'd be initial costs. There'd be a lot more money to bring it back here. There's a professional audio staff included in the rental. Professional house and theater management staff included in the rental. Cleaning crew included in the rental. All of that we would have to pay if we were here. We don't have the normal crew for any of that, or normal staffing for that. Police staffing coordination with the City of Campbell is far superior than working with the City of San Jose. And we do special measures that I'm not going to talk about now that the Campbell Police Department have been amazing to work with. And with San Jose, we've had literally problems with trying to get certain things checked in the building. We get it checked before every service, if you know what I mean. So we have that ability with the Campbell Police. They're also very comfortable being there. They're there. They're present. We don't get that if we're here with San Jose Police unless we pay it extra. There's a bigger bima for our choir, and if the goal is to have about 25 to 30 members of our choir, if we were to do that here, they would have to be in the chapel, plus there'd have to be electronic connection to the cantor and the conductor so they can communicate. So we'd have to actually create that. We don't have that. There used to be, many years ago, because we used to have it on the loft. And if those of you that are veterans here know that, the choir in the loft, they actually had a little buzzer that the cantor would press on the podium, our old podium, that would connect to that. So there have to be a way for them to connect and to be able to communicate. And the idea, again, of shrinking is not a good idea. We're growing our choir. We are basically, after COVID, had to reestablish the synagogue. I have to tell you, it's going incredibly well. We're very happy with the numbers that are coming to everything and the way we're able to rebuild. But choir is one of those pieces that I really want us to rebuild because The music tradition of this synagogue has grown with our new cantor. She's magnificent, and that was across the board one of the comments of the High Holidays. So we want more for the choir, and if you were at Ruach Shabbat, you see what we're capable of doing here, or Rock Shabbat. We have very talented musicians and singers at the synagogue, and to have someone at the cantor's level that can train people is amazing. Why limit the space? We don't have that space on our bima currently. And I also just want to remind you, there's 4 high holiday services we have here during the high holidays. Yeah, we have Sichot, which begins it, Shabbat Shuvah, Sukkot, and Simchat Torah all take place here. There's 4 here and 4 at the Heritage, just saying. And traditionally, synagogues build for Shabbat, not for high holidays. We just don't. It doesn't make any sense to do so. Those that do, the social hall would be connected to the sanctuary. I know that from my former synagogue as when I was a kid in the San Fernando Valley, and the social hall would open up and would have 500 more seats, and there you go. Then you have a 1,000-seater. Then we have a different ballgame. But that's not the way it was designed, and it makes sense. So that's my initial, that was my initial heritage comments. Are there any questions, thoughts, anything anyone wanted to bring up about that before I go on to just a couple more things about the survey? Fair enough. I'll move on then. The biggest comments I heard, it was really interesting, were the panel discussions that we had in the high holidays. And there was 50% that were like, yeah, we loved it, good for you, da, da, da. And the others going, what? What was with this? So I really appreciated that it was whenever it was when something's that divided, I think that means we have to pause and really think about what we did. The comments that I heard that were fantastic was, we needed more warning. What was it going to be about? I love that. Even added to that, why not send out to the congregation some reading information about whatever subject it's going to be, right? That'd be another thing we would do. The third thing would be that we could also attach it right after the service itself, right? The service goes, let's say, a little bit shorter, and then you have the panel discussion right after. So all those things are takeaways. I will be honest with you that this coming year we won't do a panel discussion. Basically, why? Because it'll be my 25th high holidays at Temple Emanu-El as your senior rabbi. I'm going to do a riff on a variety of things I want to talk about with you for my 5 sermons. So I actually don't want to give up any of my sermons for this coming year. I will say the comments about wanting to hear more sermon, a rabbi always wants to hear that. So thank you for those of you, which was a lot. Be careful what you wish for. I'm going for it. No. The length will still be short as they should be because I understand people's attention span. I am an educator and I respect that. I just want to underscore again the music that based on the survey, we know that we are heading in the right direction. We did some innovation with Cantor. One of those innovations was having our teens participate in the Yizkor service. That's a keeper for us. But also, we're going to expand that so we actually have a teen choir separate from Mazel tones and separate from adults. Eventually, all 3 of those will do things together and separate and all kinds of combinations. But to have the talent we have with our cantor, we got to utilize that. So I'm very excited about that. So in terms of services, you're going to see some more creativity. It's going to be not so much in the form of sermonettes or sermons and panel discussions, but it's going to really be in the form of music because we could do a lot more instrumentation. We have the space at the Heritage, so we can really do that. Any questions about that, about the survey? Please. Let me just, absolutely. I'll repeat what Bev said. So Bev Mendel said that whenever we do something like Rock Shabbat or Ruach Shabbat or something like that, we get a good turnout for services, and that doing more of that's a good thing. Talk to our bandmates, please, and ask them if they're willing to do more often. I'm in. Rock Rosh Hashanah. I have to tell you, I thought about that about 5 years ago, that we should do one piece, and I talked to Uri briefly. I don't know if even Uri remembers that. I said, maybe we could just do one piece on Rosh Hashanah, and then we chickened out. Yeah, I like that. There's another, yes. Please. Sybil, yeah. That is a concern. The closest spot, actually, The nature is, we believe it's probably about equidistant from here to get in to there as well. It just feels like it's a little bit different. But there is when you enter, right? So, there is where the police are, that little kind of right off the road there. You can park in there, and that's normally where you'd walk in. That's probably the best way, I think, still. But if you were to make a right, as if you're heading in, there's a little driveway right next to, what's the room that we rent? The Roosevelt room, where we have the break the fast. There's that little road as well. That could be utilized for this, and that may be a little bit smaller. So we're talking about it. That's something that we're talking about with Heritage. There's two things with the Heritage we're talking about. One major issue for us is how the internet drops there. We do not have that issue here. We have better internet. So that's something that we're talking to them about. So that's one issue, so that people that are at home won't lose connection with the Heritage service. That's a big issue. We don't want that anymore. And the second thing is what you're talking about, Sybil, which is being able to be as accessible as we possibly can for those that really can't walk a lot. One option we've had, actually Steve brought this up to me a bit ago, was maybe we should have a couple of wheelchairs at the drop-off. People get off and we'll wheelchair people back and forth and do it that way. So that's one of the options we're thinking about. So we're actively, we're on the same page as you, Sybil. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Ladies and gentlemen, your president and mine, Steve Crandell.
3 more months. But nobody's counting. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the bylaw change. I will admit, in a perfect world, we would have had this discussion a month ago. And the reason I say that is I've seen the comments that people have either sent to me or, well, that's where I've gotten most of the comments. And what I've noticed from those comments is it's the same comments that the board members were giving until we had a chance to talk about it. And once we talked about it, most of the fears were gone. So that's why I wanted to have a chance for everybody to bring up whatever they wanted to talk about related to the bylaw changes. And I'm sure you could, when you look at the bylaw changes, they're really 2. It looks like a lot more because some of them cascade through, but there's really 2. The first one is we want to shrink the board by 3 people, the elected board members. Many congregations are doing this. From our perspective, did I do a slide on that? Yeah, there you go. Why shrink the board? We have 18 elected board members. We've had that number since I was a child when we had 1,100 families. It just seems at 350, 18 board members might be excessive. I'm seeing this from a lot of congregations around the country who are finding that having fewer board members, they actually get a little more done because you don't spend quite as much time at board meetings going around the room asking everybody for their opinion. And the reality is, I think we all know that sometimes you get more done with fewer people. And so we'll vet new board members and do all that, but we think it's time we could reduce a little bit. If the congregation grows and we find we really need more, we can adjust later. But I think, so that's kind of what we're talking about relating to shrinking the board. I didn't see a lot of objections to that in the comments that people made. A little bit, not a lot. Keep in mind, we also, when we do the 15, we still have some ex officio members, brotherhood president, sisterhood president, youth group president, past president, president-elect. So we're really, even at 15, we're really at 21. And so one of the concerns someone had mentioned to me is, well, since you're changing the size of the board, that changes the size of what makes up a quorum. You potentially could have 6 people show up at a board meeting, or 8 people, whatever it was, and they could pass something. I suppose that's possible. It's pretty unlikely with 21 people that you're only going to get 8 at a meeting. And the reality is we probably, we tend to be, the bylaws talk about the quorum of elected board members. When in practice, we tend to be more, hey, we have less than half the whole board, half the voting members of the board here. So we would typically not, the president would use their judgment and typically not vote on anything that would be considered high impact. So it is something that we should watch out for. It was, when that was brought up, it was a little too, we'd already sent out the material, so we couldn't change it. The reason we're doing this now instead of in June is we'd like to start the process this year. We have some board positions that are expiring. We'll have 2 people that are leaving their term early, so we have a lot of choices for reducing the 3 spots right now. And then it just makes it a little easier going forward. Deborah Zimmer is the chair of the nominating committee, and we're going to meet this week to figure out which ones should we be eliminating? Because if everything goes the easy way, we have 2 spots for the year that are both not full spots. There's a 1-year spot and a 2-year spot. But we have to look down the road and see, does that make sense? In our ideal world, we would have 5 expiring positions every year. Some would renew, some wouldn't. Right now, we have 6 that expire every year. So we want to try to get to that as quickly as possible with the combination of, and I think with the combination of full terms that are expiring and partial terms that are expiring, we can play a little Tetris game and make that happen. Okay, are there any questions on the shrinking of the board part? Robin? We changed, it's a set, we adjusted the numbers. So at 18, a quorum was 10. At 15, a quorum was, I think we put it at 8. I have the, you know what, I actually have it right here. We could, so the question is, would it have made more sense to drop down to 12? We considered putting in language that said the board must be a minimum of 12, but what we were afraid of is that we would just say, well, we only need 12, so we would just stop there. So we consciously made the decision to say, look, that's a big, now you're reducing the board by 1/3. And that seemed like a little bit more than we were ready to. Great, now the computer's going to do a scan for me. That's always fun. Diane? So you have 18, okay, the question is, what are the positions? Well, board members are all board members. They're just board members at large. Not all of them. Then you have an executive committee. Our executive committee is made up of a treasurer, Byron, a secretary, Michelle, 3 vice presidents, Shannon, oh God, I shouldn't have started calling out names. Shannon, Sherry Wiesner, and Rochelle Vogler, God. And then you have a president-elect, which we don't always have, and you have president. So the Board of Trustees chooses that. Past president is also part of, yes, right, past president is an ex officio member of all of the board and the, in an ideal world, every member of the board has a portfolio of things they work on at the temple, whether it's fundraising or membership or religious school or whatever. Everybody has, or in Lana's case, Lana does zigzag or whatever. Everybody should have something in their portfolio. I'm not going to lie, not everybody does. So we have had, and we've chosen on purpose sometimes to have people who are there really just to get get their advice. We know they're busy, they can't take on anymore, but we have some really sharp people who kind of, I'll say, keep us honest, but they give us really good input on some things that, you know, they may have experienced in their life. Okay, any other questions there? All right, so we're going to move on to the big one. Why have non-Jews on the board? I am going to use the phrase non-Jew. I know it is considered a derogatory term, as is every other term I could possibly find. Jewish adjacent makes no sense to me. When the rabbi was standing here, I was Jewish adjacent, so I didn't understand that one. So I'm going to use non-Jew. If it offends you, I apologize, but that's the simplest one I can use. We wanted, we were going to go the Jew-ish route, but George Santos sort of screwed that one up for us. So, why are we doing this now? I've been spending a lot of time over the last 2.5 years in meetings with the Union, the Union of Reformed Judaism. I'm not going to say almost all because I don't actually have a number, but the vast majority of congregations did this a while ago. And I have been in some meetings with some cohorts of other West Coast congregations where I was the only one I was representing the only temple who wasn't some part of that, and I actually got some heat from the facilitators. It's like, how can you not have done this by now? And I don't care. That's not why we would do it, but it is what it is. I personally have voted against doing this at least twice, maybe 3 times over the last 10 years. But now I think the time is right. We have a lot of interfaith families here at the temple. The reality is I couldn't run a report out of our system and tell you how many there are because we don't store that information. We know, but I can't pull a list of the non-Jewish members of the temple. But they are members of the temple. They pay as a family, they attend as a family, they do everything as a family, yet we don't let them, we wouldn't let someone be on the board. And in today's world of diversity, forget it. What a DEI, I'll use that. I can't say the word inclusivity. It kind of doesn't make sense. I understand there is some emotion around. Well, you got to have a limit to the number, or they're going to take over the place. And it's like, really? I can't find Jews that want to take over the place, right? We struggle to find board members every year. I don't think we're going to be inundated with non-Jewish spouses trying to take over the temple. It's just not going to happen. The other thing that is interesting, I'm not really looking at my slide, but I can't remember the last time, and I've been involved on and off for over 20 years with the board. I cannot remember a single time where we voted on something that was religious. That's the rabbi's job. He gets pretty much carte blanche to handle the spiritual side, the rabbi and the cantor and the ritual committee. That's what they do. But we don't vote on those things. We vote on process and procedure and finances and all kinds of other things. So to me, if we have somebody who is dedicated to our mission at the temple, isn't heavily involved in a competing religious organization, then why not? Maybe they have a skill that we could really use. We actually had, Rabbi was talking to me about a potential board member who I assumed all along was Jewish. I had no idea that this person wasn't. And it's like, okay. And there, potentially are some skills that we could use. If we found somebody who had the financial background that Byron has to help us with budgeting and planning and that kind of thing, not sure there's a lot of religious issues going on there. Whether they're Jewish or not wouldn't matter. The temple really has in my opinion, has 2 arms. We have our spiritual arm and we have our business. The temple is an institution that runs a business. And that's really what the board is primarily about, is running the business. So that's kind of how when after long discussions, I changed my mind and thought, well, that's really not that big a deal. And I did get questions, this is are you no longer going to be a Jewish organization? Well, of course we are. The rabbi will have veto power on, the way nominations work is interesting. The rabbi suggests people, and other people suggest people. The rabbi doesn't get to select who was on the board, but he kind of has veto power. If he knows there's a reason that somebody shouldn't be on the board, he's not shy about telling us that. And that's how it should be. I mean, it's kind of like, I won't say it's like the government because the government doesn't work, but it's kind of like the government where somebody's checking to make sure we're not doing something that doesn't make sense, because we don't always know everything. But we have to be a little more careful about our vetting process, just to make sure that we're not doing something that would be wrong, whatever that would mean. Okay. Are there any questions about this? Questions, comments? We'd like to see them because I know I did get a lot of questions and comments through email. Eric. Okay, so the question was about the nominating committee. There was another strike from the bylaws around a nominating committee for the executive committee. That's what we took out. We were supposed to have a special second nominating committee, which worked on nominating officers for the executive committee. I didn't even know that existed, and to my knowledge, in the time I've been involved with the board, that has never taken place. So we decided why don't we actually get rid of that from the bylaws and put down in the bylaws what we actually do, where it's really kind of the executive committee along with the rabbi and the staff. We start asking people who would be interested in certain positions, and we go through that process, and we present a slate. And since those people are already on the board, it's really not that hard. Right. So it's not the regular nominating committee, it's the executive committee nominating committee that's going away. Good question. Any other questions or comments? Dan.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a major issue with this, but I will tell you that I am uncomfortable with it. I agree with everything you said about oversight, governance, and so forth. It just seems to me that we are a Jewish organization, and therefore the governance, not participation, not inclusion, governance ought to have that aspect to it. And so I'm on the fence. I probably won't make up my mind until I push the button. But I'm uncomfortable.
Totally fair. And I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. That's not the point. I think our feeling was that if somebody is dedicated to the Jewish values, which are not that hard to be dedicated to, and supports the mission of the temple and isn't in conflict with anything at the temple, I have permission, by the way. I'll use my wife as an example. She has absolutely no interest in being on the board, so that's why I can do this. Allison is not Jewish. She also doesn't support any other religious organization. She celebrates Christmas with her family, as do a lot of our other members. She is active. She's on the membership committee. She was on the deli night committee. She does all kinds of stuff around the temple because she likes it. Makes her feel good. She works at Jewish Family Services, right? So if she felt some need or had a leadership skill that we felt was valuable, it's like, in my mind, it's like, well, why would we turn that down? We struggle to get people with strong skills sometimes that are willing to be on the board. So to me, if I can marry opportunity with need, that's when I choose to do that. I don't believe this is a personal opinion, I don't believe we'll ever have more than one or two non-Jewish spouses on the board at any point concurrently. I don't think I just don't think the desire is there.
I agree with that.
If it's that, yeah. You know, it's interesting. Thank you for that. It's interesting because I don't know. I think I put it somewhere in here. 70% of Jews. Deborah and I went to a social. I was a sociologist, and there's all kinds of studies that 70% of Jews marry non-Jews now, and so if we don't embrace the non-Jewish family fully, we end up with these people who join, hang out until they can get a bar mitzvah, and then they leave because the family is not fully committed to the temple. And that's always going to happen. There's always going to be some of that, but to me, we try to minimize that by being more inclusive of the entire family, the whole family, not just the Jewish part of the family. So that's kind of the reason for this. And I agree with you also that I don't expect to be flooded with emails now saying, hey, I want to be on the board. And we're never going to vote on whether we're going to have a Christmas tree in the foyer. None of that's going to happen. So, you know, there's always going to be the checks and balances in place, but I'm with you. I appreciate your comment. Lana.
I'm going to stand up so you can hear me. I'm on the board, and when it first came up at one of our meetings, I was dead set against it. And then, as Steve talked, I started thinking of members of our congregation who I know, who are not Jewish, but are active in every aspect of temple life except for being on the board. And when I took it down to the personal level, people who I know personally, who I consider my friends, who are not allowed on the board, but the active of every single thing this temple has to offer, I changed my mind, and I support this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the YouTube comments. Just give me one sec. Okay, nobody's asked anything scary, so it's all good. So we moved of the Jewish faith from the board member to the president line. Some congregations have moved it to the committee. We might have put it there, but that was just our thinking. So it's on the president line. And being president of the temple is not a position of power, right? You spend a lot more time listening to people than anything else. But you do get, the one thing you get to do is you get to kind of decide what gets voted on and what doesn't. So that does become a check in the event that the revolution begins. Right. When that tree goes up, I'm signing executive orders, or David will, because I'm not going to be around. So I think, we wanted it in there somewhere. Right. And that's what some of the comments online right now are about, saying they absolutely love this idea and they like the idea that the president has that restriction. Anybody else? Okay, so if you haven't voted, please do. It's in the link to voting is in the email that you were sent. If you want to, okay, I'll ask you a question. We have paper ballots. If you voted and have decided you want to change your mind, fill out a paper ballot, put your name on it. Just so you'll know, voting online is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not anonymous, thank you. Man, my brain's not working well. So we know who voted for what, and that's okay. You had to sign on to the website to vote. So if you decide you want to change your vote, fill out a paper ballot and we'll adjust your vote that you already had. If you don't want to change, that's fine too. The email, no, I think it came from Stephanie. Oh, it's on the website too. You can go to the website, log in, and the link is there. Plenty. Virginia. That is correct. That's how bylaw votes. Because both of these affected the exact same article, we didn't want to do, literally it was the same paragraph in the bylaws. We didn't want to have two votes accept one or the other. Could have done it if we really wanted to, but it's just more work than we chose to go through. So it was one bylaw vote. No. Per adult. If you want to use one ballot and put 2 votes on it, you can do that too. Any other questions? Okay, so we can open it up. We actually have 20 minutes if you want to talk about anything else. Neil.
I was going to bring this up when the rabbi was talking about the Heritage Theater. Every year, Brotherhood goes through the Vishavas of finding volunteers to move the furniture. Because it's on weekdays, and people are getting older. There needs to be a better method, a more structured method to get the furniture to the Heritage Theater and back. You need to go to the gym.
Okay, Neil, that's a very fair comment. Brotherhood, we can work with Brotherhood, figure that out. Potentially, there are services we could call Lug or whatever and have the whole thing done if it becomes a problem. It's just that's a very solvable issue. You could throw a little bit of money at just about anything and solve that. Because it's not really that much stuff that we couldn't. I mean, Lug would probably cost us a few $100.
But it's only put out to Brotherhood to come, and a lot of the men that are active are not young anymore.
Who? Yvonne? Yvonne, did you have a question? Yvonne? Virginia? Oh, you mean physically or financially? Physically. Oh, there's a lot of work to be done left on the 2020 project physically. The whole front, not the facade of the building, but the whole front area from the steps to the street are all going to be completely redone. All the way around the corner, all the way to the Myrtle entrance where we build the ramp and all that kind of stuff. We're probably looking at July for completion, don't you think, Andrew? Financially, we're still looking at, go ahead, Larry. Oh, yeah. One of a big component of what we're doing is the fence that goes into the school building, the gate. We have to raise that. We've actually had people hop over that fence to get on the campus. So we're going to be doing higher fence over there, so it'll be harder to get over. So that whole gate that lets you into the school building will be redone. There's all kinds of stuff. The whole perimeter of the parking on the street will be repainted to being diagonal, all kinds of stuff. From a financial perspective, we're working hard, seems like every week we get a little more, but we're still probably needing $400,000 to $500,000 more to finish everything. So we're working on that, and it's getting better. Again? Yeah, the whole place will be handy. There will be no ramp because the whole place, there will be no steps to go down to the sanctuary, to the school building. It's going to be a slow rise from the street all the way up to the sanctuary. 1% grade or 1.5% grade, something like that. And on the street, there will be cutouts for wheelchairs so that people will be able to get up. And in the back driveway, we're actually going to have the entrance, the part where you come off the street into the driveway will actually be lined up and the right size. Sorry, Rabbi, no more driving calisthenics to get into the parking lot.
With that lovely grading you just described, I'm thinking drainage. Will that be approved by the city?
It's all been approved. We're way past that. We're miles approved. Yeah, the fact that we have any slope at all is better than where we were. So, yeah, well. Yeah, and there's no problem with that. They've approved that whole plan. If you haven't looked out on the patio, please look out on the patio when you get done in here. The patio's going to be spectacular. All the pavers are mostly down, so other than the finishing trim, we think, like the rabbi said, we think the patio could be potentially available for use in the next, who knows, 30 days. But it's beautiful already. So a lot of good stuff there. Any other questions about anything else? Okay, well, thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your time. And we'll call the meeting closed. Thank you. Good job. Thanks. No comments from the peanut gallery. Thought that was interesting. I don't mean. Thanks. So you asked the question.